the record button, we will capture most of this, but something I got to get back used to doing. So next we're going to have Eddie and then Blanithia.
All right. Good morning, comrades. Eddie Peters, of course, Air Force. Let me go ahead and get something started right now off the bat. And good morning to everyone, each and every one of you. Wow, perception versus reality. Yeah, great subject. On a personal note, sometimes the perception is the reality, and that's not always a good thing. There's been many a room that I've been in before, and yeah, I've always liked to have this the opportunity to get to know someone before forming opinions, because a lot of times they'll come at you where people will give you their perceptions of a circumstance or an individual and almost expect you to just kind of fall in line along with that and help form your opinion before you've had an opportunity to look at things from your own perspective. And then, sometimes it ends up turning out to be true, and other times it can be completely the other side of what you thought. So when it comes to that, I tend to look at it on a personal level because you can't really look at it on a group as a whole. And I try to solve that for me internally, that struggle with get to know me, because that's something that I'm going to want to do. I'm going to want to be able to do the same thing in getting to know you, and let me form my opinion that way. And I'll do that one person at a time. Can't do it as a group. I got to do it one person at a time, because that'll help me determine, just how far I can take things, who I'm in the room with, and just what I'm working with. You know what I'm saying? And I would hope that others would feel the same way the other way around when it comes to me.
Right. Fantastic. Thanks, Eddie. Next, we're going to have Blanithia, and then we're going to try GI again. Blanithia.
Good morning, everyone. Blanithia Van, Air Force retired. I'm a veteran service officer with the National Association for Black Veterans. I'm a little caught off about the reception versus reality. I agree with what Eddie said prior to me. The only different thing that I would add is a lot of times, when I talk to people, I talk about what's the perfect world versus the real world. Because a lot of times situations come up and it's a way that it should be, but then in actuality, it's the way that it is. And so that's about as much as I can say with perception versus reality.
All right, thanks, Blanithia. And we're going to try GI again. GI, are you available? All right, so what we're going to do now is go through a quick slideshow. We're talking this morning about the P in empowerment. The P is for perception, which is where the question came from. Perception is reality. So we're looking at this whole idea of empowerment. It's a play on words. It's inspire plus empowerment. So it's empowerment. How do you empower your damn self? There's some things that you can do versus always having to rely on someone. This does not say you can't ask for assistance. I'm not saying throw that medication away if you need it. What I'm saying is there's some things that you can do in order to empower yourself. So we're looking at the P in empowerment perceptions, which I think Mike mentioned. It's a mental impression of what's going on in your life, a way of regarding, understanding, and interpreting something. Now, it goes back to step one in this framework that I built called strategic energetic transition, and identifying the 6 types of stress that mess up the way that we show up. And what I mean by we is Black veterans. And yeah, it pertains to everyone, but as well as I know, we have a longer list of things that we have to deal with and overcome. So we're looking at the mental aspect of the whole idea of what are some things that mess up the way that we show up. Now, when you peel back that onion and you look at the mental energy blocks, one way to remember the 5 mental energy blocks is the whole idea of alibi. What is your alibi? What is your defense? What is your reason for showing up the way that you are? And when we're looking at perceptions, it kind of hits on the L, the I, and the B, limiting beliefs. interpretations and bias. And as you can see the quick definition of those aspects underneath. Now, as some of you all mentioned, we tend to perceive what we expect to perceive. So the next few images will illustrate what that means. So on the left, you've seen this picture before, a big, strong lion, but what do you see on the right? What shows up on the right? Anyone?
Smaller lion.
Okay. Smaller lion. Anything else?
Like a gerbil or something, or
A
a hamster.
gerbil, a squirrel, a mouse, some type
It's
of other animal.
Rodent, yeah.
It's
Some type of
inverted.
rodent.
It's
Yeah.
inverted.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
depending on how you're looking at a situation, it can be big, it can be a lion, it can be strong, or it could be something like a gerbil or a mouse or a squirrel. Same picture, just inverted, as Eddie mentioned. Now, looking at this, what do you see? Albeit rhetorical, you may see a white guy with a hat that's, you know, laughing or smiling or whatever with a crazy grin on his face. But when you flip that upside down, totally different perception, totally different. And what about this one? Anyone, what do you see?
I'm familiar with that one. You can see the young girl or you can see the old lady, right?
Right, does everyone see both? Does anyone not see the old lady and the young girl? Rob raised his hand. So the young girl is actually looking over her right shoulder or looking away, while the older lady is profile. So the older lady has the eye that's looking to the left, but that eye is the ear of the younger lady. So again, it's all about perception. It's all about how you look at things. Also, our mindsets are quick to form, but resistant to change. So this image illustrates the principle by showing part of a longer series of progressively modified drawings that change from a man into a woman. The right-hand drawing in the top row, when viewed alone, has equal chances of being perceived as a man or a woman. But when people are shown the entire series of drawings one by one, their perception of this intermediate drawing is biased according to which end of the series they started from. So people who start by viewing a picture that is clearly a man are biased in favor of continuing to see a man long after an objective observer recognizes that the man is now a woman. Similarly, people who start at the woman end of the series are biased in favor of continuing to see a woman. So X, I mean, what is this telling us? Once we have formed an image, that is, once we have developed a mindset or expectation concerning the phenomenon being observed, this conditions future perceptions of that phenomenon. So with that said, let me ask you this. What perception is your reality? So we're going to come back to that question again. And this, as the last few moments, has given you an opportunity to think about this whole phenomenon again. So now I'm going to open it up for discussions that you may have. Any additional thoughts? Mike, you have your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to just share one example. The picture of the man morphed into the woman reminded me of a interaction that I had. I was having some work done on my house, and I was talking to the company, and then I needed to speak to a supervisor, and so I asked to speak to a supervisor, and they said, "We're going to get Danny for you." And they went and got Danny, and I was talking to Danny. And two things, Danny to me was a male name. And then the voice that came on was more like a male. And so when I referred to Danny, I was using male pronouns. And I was quite embarrassed when Danny came back and corrected me to say, she and etc. And then later on, Danny had to come by our house a couple of times for some, to review the work. And I did apologize, but it was a little bit embarrassing because I consider myself somebody to be aware and woke, and I just simply, typically thought Danny was Danny, and that Danny would be a man, and the voice was the voice of a man to me. And so I just share that happened to me.
Wow, thanks for that. I've been in a situation similar to that in terms of emails, sending an email saying, using those pronouns. When you're looking at the name, it's a stereotypical male or female name. And in fact, I just referred to Blanithia. That's why she's shaking her head. Just yesterday, she says, yeah, I reached out to her about this issue because he had some questions about compensation. And I said, thanks, Blanithia. Hey, yeah, his name threw me off as well because he spells his name Andrea. So I was thinking, and Blanithia was probably thinking Andrea, but it's Andre. So to Mike's point, you have to be careful with names and things of that nature because it can really throw you off. Dale, you have your hand up.
I was thinking about the fact that I learned years ago, and I can't remember what this particular concept was called or how it was referred to, but that if you want to really get to know another person, you can find out more about another person by asking them about someone else. And what they tell you about someone else tells you more about who they are than anything that they could tell you themselves, which is another aspect of perception. Okay.
Wow. That's interesting. That's interesting because I've been asked, so that's what they were doing. So when I rewind the tape, that's what some people have been doing with me. So yeah, what do you think about LeBron? Or what do you think about, it could be the supervisor or a coworker. And perhaps they were wondering, they were using this tactic that Dale just mentioned. So thanks for that, Dale. Man, I tell you what, from these calls, I get tidbits that I can use immediately. It's immediately practical and applicable. So this is good stuff. Paul, you have your hand up.
Yeah, my perception for things like that, because I've heard that what Dale just made mention of. And so when people ask me questions specifically in reference to somebody else, the first thing I try to do is I try to say, the way I see it, right? I try to own what it is that I think so that I'm not casting, kind of some kind of doubt or perception about a person out like in a broad statement, because what people will do in my opinion, like what I just said, in my opinion, what people will do is they'll take what you said and they'll kind of run with it. And then before you know it, you don't realize that you're the one who kind of started this chain for a person. And that perception is the reality, because that person is asking you, and they may be asking you just because they don't know, but they also may be asking you because of what you just said. They sizing you up to try to see what you think so that they can think it as well. And so I try to always own my own personal opinion or perception about somebody, because I don't want somebody to be, looked at or dealt with or treated differently because of my opinion of them. And one of the things I always do is, and staying true to that, is I have no problem telling that person what I think of them individually, so that it's not like I said it to you, but I won't say it to them. I'm not going to say anything to you that I wouldn't say anything to the next person. I want that person to know that, look, I'm just being candid and upfront. It's not, anything personal, but the perception is, well, you're talking about somebody, or you're mistreating somebody, or you're looking at somebody different. No. I said, this is the way I think it. This is the way I see it. And this is the way I feel about it. And I'm willing to tell that individual the exact same thing so that they know where I stand.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. And one thing, I'll be transparent. When I first got to Frederick, Maryland, got stationed at Fort Detrick, I was going through a divorce. So as some of you all may have experienced, when you're going through something like that, you just change as a person. So the person I was back in 2016 morphed into the person I am today. But during that time frame, there may have been some perception of who I was as a person, and that some people will spread their perception and their perspective of you. And it's not until others really get a chance to know you and see what you're all about and realize that you may have been going through. But it's important to get to know the person for yourself, as Paul mentioned. Next, I think it was Jason and then Gloria.
All right. Dr. X, you referring to me, Jason Smith?
Yeah, Jason Smith, I'm sorry.
All right. Again, thank you, Saints. I apologize for my tardiness. I was under the impression it was 8:30. I apologize. But what was the question for the day? We just asking for wins or updates from the week?
Oh, no, it was your take on perception is reality.
Well, I'm actually going through something similar as you just described, Brother Bruce. And, that has affected my personal perception of myself. I think that enough is said, and you can hear enough people who are mentors, guides, life coaches that talk about your personal perception, your self-talk, and the stories you tell yourself. And I think that's the biggest, most important perception to get right. You have a story that you need to tell. You have a narrative that you need to live out if you want to influence others. And if you're not telling yourself the right things about yourself, and I don't mean in that, high school motivational speech type of way, but I mean the type of stories about how you execute, what your real values are, what it means to the rest of the world that you are who you are. If you can't get those things right, or if you don't keep thinking about those things, then it will morph on its own. Outside influences will affect you. So I've been very intentional in this phase as I'm transitioning, as I'm redefining myself, that I'm being intentional about not so much trying to force and make myself something that I'm not, but to understand it clearly and defend it, to fix what should be fixed, and to be the best of who I am so I can rise to the occasion for what I need to do. If we can master those things, then your perception of yourself will be the reality that others see. And I think that's the most important thing.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Before we go to Gloria, I think I see my mom. She popped on. Is she still on? She just went mute. She may have went to go get a cup of coffee. So we'll go to Gloria and then Jesse.
Just listening to everyone, I started thinking about the more things change, the more they remain the same. And it took me back to the 60s when the guys were coming in from Vietnam. The command, who generally were not medical, perceived that these guys were just trying to get out, period. Just out of the military, out of the hospital, just to get out, when they were not. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to be believed. And it's the same way now. Those of you that deal with veterans that are appealing their claims. It's not that they just want more money, they want what they're entitled to. And they want to be believed when they go in for the reviews. I'm going through something right now. They said that I was not, they have no record of me ever being in the Navy. None whatsoever.
Wow.
And the attorney, who Dr. X and all of us know, we have one of the best attorneys that you can get to handle claims, I think, Attorney Towns, had to, I mean, we had to go from the very basic to the very top to show, how do you get a DD 214 if you've never been in the service?
Mhm.
Okay, so it will make you begin to question your own self. And I said, I woke up one morning and it startled me because I said, am I who I think I am, or am I somebody else? So the more things change, the more they remain the same. So we're talking about the present day and the perceptions, the present day, when I went through the same thing back in the 60s. Men being questioned about what really happened to them in Vietnam, as opposed to the reality of the fact that what they were saying was absolutely the truth. So I'm adding to our perception and reality a truth, which also questions our trustworthiness, our honesty, our integrity, our values.
Wow, it's good stuff. Thanks, Gloria. Next, we're going to have Jesse and then Bryant.
Thank you. Hey, Gloria, I was one of those mental health specialists back in 1974 through 79 that dealt with a lot of our returning veterans. I was at Shepherd Regional Hospital working mental health. So we had to assess a lot of those individuals that came back from Vietnam. About 80% of them really did have PTSD. There was another percentage there, 15 to 20%, who just wanted to get out of the military. But it was an interesting time just having come up in that era and having dealt with some of our vets that were coming back and having to be in the assessment cycle. Well, Michael stimulated a thought about a funny incident that happened to me about 3 months ago when I had some work coming into on my garage. It's funny, and it somewhat relates to the earlier topic about perceptions. So the individuals I had was Tom and Jerry, and that's their name. They're identical twins. Tom, and they're both white males. Physically, they look the same. One has a beard and one doesn't. The beardless guy, Jerry, came to the house first, and they have masks on and worked on my garage. I needed some other stuff done. So then Tom came a week later, and as Tom was walking up, I said, "How you doing, Jerry?" I didn't recognize that the beard on Tom. I just saw the mask and the physique. And so I responded to him as he was his brother. He said, "No." He said, I'm Jerry. I said, "Well, I apologize because I really hate when people do that to me. Miscalled me someone else's name." He said, "Don't worry about it." He said, "We're identical twins, Tom and Jerry." I said, "Okay." Your parents had a tremendous sense of humor. Excellent work, but it was just an experience, Mike. I mean, nothing to do with your situation, but my perception was I was looking at one individual, I was dealing with him. Both of them was friendly individuals, but they were identical twins, and that was reality.
Wow. Wow, that's a great story. Next, we're going to have Bryant and then Blanithia.
Hey guys, two real quick thoughts. I know you guys had talked about multiple times about not really knowing what the sex or the gender is of an individual when you're talking. For those who don't have Facebook like myself or any type of social media, you can always try truepeoplesearch.com, and it's a free site. You throw in a name and it gives, if you have roughly where they stay, it's a lot of detailed information. As X knows, as a Intel person, this is a site that you should be very, very familiar with for multiple reasons when it comes to being able to unsubscribe yourself. But more people than not, I would say about 80 to 90% of people are not aware, and all their information is on there. So take that as an action if you care about your identity. The next thought is it's not a
Can you
bad
drop
thing.
that in the link? Can you drop that in the chat, please?
Sure will. Absolutely. And the other thought is, it's not bad to have, that quick perception is reality either. And I know we give stories about the negativity, that it could lend itself to, but it allows, us to make quick decisions, to keep our family safe. It is one thing to recognize that you could fall, that could be a pitfall, but it does have its utility as well. So quick decisions, safety, it's positive as well in some aspects, in a lot of aspects, I believe.
All right, thanks, Bryant. Next, Blanithia and then Charmin.
Okay, and adding to what Gloria and Jesse were saying, because, I deal with the veterans a lot, with their disability compensations. And, part of my prepping them when they're going for their compensation and pension exam, I make sure that they understand that a lot of the doctors there, they never served anywhere. And when a veteran comes to them for a CMP exam, they're looking they look at disability as missing an arm, a leg, or something visual, and not realizing that stuff can actually be internal or emotional or mental. And I even had one veteran that was being evaluated by a CMP examiner. He went there and he was dressed pretty nice and everything. And the examiner looked at him and say, you're well groomed. You don't look like anything's wrong with you, and wrote it in the person's, in their evaluation and stuff, And then I had another situation where the doctor was evaluating a veteran and was telling the veteran, I don't see why you're not employed, but hadn't checked the person's record to see that they were 70% mood disorder. There's a reason why they're not employed, because they can't work in a social environment and stuff. So again, when dealing with the veterans, that happens a lot. The perception and reality happens a lot.
Absolutely, thanks. And there is a VA disparity study that's being done, and was really spearheaded by a gentleman named Richard Brookshire, who I know, and that's coming, because there is some disparity in what we get and what our counterparts get. Next, Charmin and then Eddie.
Good morning, everyone. So everyone has been talking about their stories of how they have encountered people with different names, or people that and in their identity. So I wanted to share mine. So I present as a cis female. However, a woman. So I often get the rhetorical, "Is your husband available?" And I say, well, we're gonna have a moment. It's called a teachable, learnable moment, because you just assumed that I'm married to a man, and I'm not. So I can go get my wife, and if that's who, if you need her to help me make this decision, but we're on one accord. And then another perception is my name is spelled Charmin, like the toilet paper. And I don't know why people call me sir, and they did it in the military as well. So, I think it's very, very important as we are trying to have inclusive language that's, that is going to take a while to change our behaviors, is to start off the conversation sometimes with, hello, my name is Charmin. I go by the pronouns of she, her, and hers. That opens it up for the other person to share their pronouns, especially if they're different than what we have been accustomed to. So, it's just crazy, because even though people make the perception that my wife is my daughter, and I know I don't look that old, okay? I'm turning 50 next Thursday, but I just been darn. she's not my daughter, okay? And she's my wife. Look at her hand. Look at our hands. But people, you can tell them, oh, that's my wife, and then they'll say, oh, that's your partner. No, I said that's my wife. Okay,
Give 'em
put
straight.
some respect on the title. There's I didn't say partner, I said wife. So I just find it to be a teachable, learnable moment, an opportunity to share when someone does that, when we experience that. Yeah, so.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sharman. Thanks,
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Next, Eddie, and then Dale.
Hey, you know what? That's one of the many reasons this call is so awesome, because of the stories and the experiences that we tell in this safe place, right? Going back to what Mike said, and then even forward to what Sharman said in those times where we get those teachable moments. So appreciate what both of you all said, because Mike, you mentioned being embarrassed even, and I have a story there. It has to do absolutely with perception versus reality. Let's just say that back in the day, the perception for me was the angry black man. I'm just going to put that there. And wasn't always the case, but if I was taken to that point, then, it is what it is. Like Blanethia said, it is what it is, right? So bottom line was, long story short, at the time back in El Paso, Texas, and my wife and I were coming along, but we were going through our things. We were trying to run a business and so forth, and all the challenges financially come along with that. And I can remember those envelopes we used to get, y'all, back in the day, that first would be yellow, and then it would be red inside of there. Now some of y'all can relate. Y'all know what I'm talking about, Jesse. I see what you're saying. Them bills, right? The yellow one, it was a warning, the warning light, and the red one was so don't laugh at me, Dale. So here's the thing. We were used to getting that to happen. Here's my point, though. I knew that it was my cable that was behind. And I actually saw a truck outside in the neighborhood, and sure enough, I went out, and yeah, it was the angry black man, because I also perceived that I was getting ready to get it from the gentleman. I mean, because hey, perception, look at what he does for a living. He goes around, might as well be repossessing stuff. He repossessing, one of the livelihoods in the household, right? So yeah, I came out there to give him both barrels. And that's exactly what I did. I just came out, no hello, no good morning, nothing like that, and tell him, hey man, y'all this and that and so forth and what have you. Here was the thing. What I was met with was a Christian brother that basically this gentleman listened to everything that I had to say to him. And then he basically just said, you know what? He said, here's what I want you to do. I can really, really take my time in doing this. What I want you to do is I want you to call this number. Let them know that I'm already here, and come back out. Let me know what they say, so forth and what have you. And let's go from there. It just kind of stopped me. And I got to tell y'all, when I went back in that house, I was as embarrassed as it could possibly be. First of all, I wasn't raised that way, right? To have that kind of a perception, and then to just go ahead and dump it on somebody else. But the reality was that it wasn't coincidental, I don't believe, in my life for that to happen. I think coincidences happen when God chooses to remain anonymous. And the bottom line was that he was put there to show me exactly how I looked, what I looked like, why there's perception versus reality. And that's kind of what I was leading to when I said sometimes perception and reality are one and the same. At least it was in that moment, in that sense. And I was able to calm myself down. And thankfully, I was able to get back out to that gentleman before he left and just tell him thank you for being here to do what it was you did. You have no idea what you just did for me in just this 5-minute turnaround here. And I've never, ever forgotten that. And so that's why I also share with the part about get to know me before you have some sort of impression, if you will, of me, because you could be so very, very far off that you have no idea what you could miss to include even a blessing. So I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Eddie. And something you mentioned before we move on to Dale, you mentioned get to know me. Could you share a story about, who you got to know this past week and what you recommend we all do?
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate that. As a result of what you do, sir, and how you have facilitated these Saturday morning conversations, which I personally am mad if I don't attend. I'm mad when I miss it because I know I really missed something. So I wanted to take it a step further, and I know we're doing things in the chat and what have you, but wanted to reach out while we can and still get together in person. You never know with these numbers the way they are, right, going up and stuff. But I wanted to reach out to a couple of the brothers, and even on your suggestion also as well, sir, to connect beyond the Zoom room. And I had the privilege of being able to do that with Brother Dix and also Brother Black, Brother Dix in person. We were able to break bread together and sit down. Brother Black, we were able to do a Zoom. And in fact, we're looking forward to doing it on a regular basis to be able to continue to grow the relationship. Here's what's so special about that. You know, we don't even know what we don't know. Still going back to perception versus reality. It can be one and the same, but it can be so much more than what you thought when you actually sit down and visit with someone. That's why it's so important for us to associate one to another. And if we have to do it on Zoom just because we're stretched out as far as we are, then so be it. Take advantage of that. And don't look at it as another meeting, if you will. I was telling Black, don't fall in that trap of it being doom and gloom when it comes to the reality and perception out here. It's not about doom and gloom. It's about Zoom and boom. If that's what you have the opportunity to be able to do, get together with folks and connect, because we can grow this thing nationwide. We really can. And thanks for allowing me to share that, X.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. You said it's not doom and gloom, it's Zoom and boom. I love it. I'm writing that down.
No doubt.
Another
Yeah.
Eddieism.
Yeah, it is.
Next, we're going to have Dale, and then I want to give my mom a chance to chime in. Over.
Thanks for the opportunity, Dr. X. This has been a wonderful time spent exchanging these thoughts and ideas about perception and reality. I remember when I was about 6 years old in South Carolina, running around in a tobacco warehouse, and my name is Dale. And I didn't know there were other people named Dale, right? so I'm running around and I hear someone say, Dale. And I look around and it's a mother calling to her young girl, her daughter, and the name's Dale. And you can imagine I was crushed. Okay. I mean, I didn't know that Dale was a girl's name too, right? So I started crying and went back to my mom, asking her why she named me Dale. A little play on that, but I think that this conversation should have us kind of reevaluate ourselves. Some of you may be like I used to be, which is basically I took myself too seriously. I mean, I thought the rest of the world must see things the way I see them, and conversations like this one, led me to understand that, what, you got to stop taking yourself so seriously, because the world is much bigger than you thought it was, and that you perceived it was. And that was a real eye opener for me, and it changed my life. And I'm so grateful for it. Okay. And I'd like to lastly share a few words that I've often used in diversity conversations to kind of be an icebreaker. And I want you guys to listen, because, many times we think that we have perfected the English language so well that when we speak, and we speak so clearly, that surely you could not possibly misunderstand what I said. Was that clear? And sometimes we speak slower to make sure it's clear. Just doesn't work. So I want you to listen to these words and see what you see as a result of hearing these words. A man is afraid to come home because there's a man at home with a mask. What do you see? Let me repeat. A man is afraid to come home because there's a man at home with a mask. What do you see? Any takers?
Jason?
That's a tough one.
To me, it paints a lot of images of both individuals. Well, why would a man be afraid to go home to his house because there's a man in the mask there? I mean, you can take a lot of different perceptions on that one. And I see Paul has a hand, so I'll stop there.
Yeah.
When I hear that, the immediate response or immediate thought I get is when you say there's a man who's afraid to go home because there's a man with a mask, to me, that man at home with the mask is the responsibility of taking care of that home, right? And the reason, in my opinion, the guy is afraid to go home is because that's a lot, right? I left work with a lot, and now I'm going home to more because everybody in that house, not to say that the woman can't do it, because I think that's important, but everybody in that house is waiting for that leader of the home to come home and to make sure it's responsible. Charmin said something earlier that I think, a lot of us have, well, let me say a lot of times I have the perception that when you see an attractive woman, you immediately, and you see a ring, you immediately think they have a husband, not thinking that she could have a wife. So again, you get afraid. To me, you become afraid because you don't know what's waiting for you on the other side of that door when you walk through it. You know it's something. You know it's something, and that's the mask. The mask is, it could be everything.
Yeah. Amen to that. And I think my thoughts on that is, that you are not allowed to, or the appropriate thing as the man is not to respond instinctively as yourself. You have to come in and you have to act the act. You have to, do and say things in a way that will keep the peace. If you care about peace, right? If you care about, harmony in the home, then you're going to have to tread more lightly than you want to, or you're going to have to do and say things that just are not your instinctive reaction. So you're going to have to work, keep up impressions, try harder, and not just be yourself. You can't go to your own castle as the king and let your hair down and just be, say, do, and think what you want. That is the reality for most men. I think that most men really should go and do and think and be what they are, and that's more important. But
okay, if I may, let me move the conversation along, because this is normal, right? Many times in our communications, we do not establish sufficient context as we deliver that conversation. And consequently, the conversation can go in the wrong direction very quickly. So let me give you some context for these words. I want you to think of these words in the context of a sporting event. Now, in the context of a sporting event, a man is afraid to come home because there's a man at home with a mask.
Baseball.
What do you see? Baseball. We have a runner on third base, and he is afraid to come home because the catcher's there.
Wow. Wow.
So do you get the point? I mean, there's just so many ways you can be interpreted. So it's very important to establish the proper context so that someone can receive your words more closely to the way they're intended. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Powerful. That's powerful right there. That's good groceries right there. I want to give my mom a chance to chime in. You have anything you want to add?
Let me just say this quickly. Good morning, everyone. I do apologize for coming on late in a couple of hours. Regretfully, we will have the memorial service for one of my teachers who passed away unexpectedly. But I wanted to chime in this morning because I don't know about you all, but it's 7 o'clock here in Arkansas when I chime in with you all. But when I leave you all, I tell you, I'm energized. I leave with such positivity to start my day. So I had to chime in with you all this morning. Let me just say this quickly. When you're talking about perception versus reality, the thing that resonates with me is, I'm in the education realm. Back in 2006, we had to annex with a nearby school. The teachers, the students, the town folk, they just thought that we stole their school. They had to shut down. They had to come 20 some miles to the school.
And that was back in 2006. And they had this perception that our town just took their school, just destroyed their town. And I tell you, 2022, I am still dealing with that with students. I'm having fights almost every week, although we curtailed that. But I'm still having that, and it's still, I think, still escalating through the parents, because these kids, they didn't know anything back there in 2006. So that perception and reality, actually, it was the state that did it. But it has caused such a disruption, but we're working through that. I'm so glad to be with you all this morning. I am still going to leave with positivity and being just energized this morning.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's 9:01. Our next topic will be organization, the O in empowerment. Next Saturday will be the O in empowerment, about organization. If any of you all would love to be the guest speaker, that would be great. To speak about 15 minutes on organization. Basically, what are some ways that we can organize our lives, our space, our environment, our homes, so that we can declutter our lives in the mental and the physical. And that's it for today. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. And if you all can just do some one-on-one conversations, Zoom or in person this week, that would be great. But you all make it a great week. Take care. Bye.
Be safe,
God
everyone.
bless. Be safe. Take care.